guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Makeup by Sasha here. So in today's video I'm going to be sharing my favorite baking and setting powders. Now I haven't actually counted them, but I'm just going to go through them. I may not even have an even number of each. But first of all, I'm just going to let you guys know there is a difference between setting and baking powders. Now, a lot of people don't realize this. They feel like every translucent powder is a setting powder, every translucent powder is a baking powder. But just to give you guys a quick lowdown, a setting powder is mainly for just setting the highlighted areas under your eyes, down the bridge of your nose, in the center of your forehead. It's mainly just to set it, to stop it from creasing and to stop it from moving anywhere. Now, when you're actually baking now, the goal is to brighten the area and to make sure that it is bulletproof. Like, baking really does provide that lock in place, brightened look. Like, if you want a full glam, your best bet is to bake. Now, I haven't always been somebody who bakes. I always used to feel like, why would I bake? I just can set. But recently, I've actually been doing it quite a lot. It's been making a huge difference and it actually looks wicked. So I'm going to jump straight into this video and show you the first setting powder by number 7. So this is the Perfect Light Loose Powder in Dark. So I'm just going to show you guys what it looks like, okay? That's the look of this powder. So I think they do have light, medium and dark. So obviously I will get the dark one. The dark is the darkest one. Now this is really, really great for setting the under eye. I wouldn't really use it as a baking powder because it's not bright enough. It's a bit too dark to use as a baking powder, but this is perfect for setting the face. I like to use it when I'm kind of like going to work. If I'm trying to be a little bit more toned down, I will use this powder. It's actually really, really good and it is definitely shine free. So if you like a matte look, especially under your eyes and in your forehead and your T-zone, you can use this powder. You can actually also use it all over the face as well. I probably wouldn't because I prefer a warmer look over the face and I'd be a little bit scared that this might make me look a little bit ashy, so I wouldn't really use it on the face, but it's sheer enough to do so if you just use like a really small amount. The next powder I'm going to mention is the Morphe setting powder in Banana. So this is actually called Bake and Set. I'm guessing you can actually use this as a baking and a setting powder, and they are absolutely correct. This can be used as both. Now, if I just show you guys, even just looking at this powder, you can tell just by the color that you can use this as both because it's deep enough. It's like a deep yellow tone. Powders with a lot of pigment you can tend to use as a setting powder, but because it's so yellow and bright, you can also bake with this powder. So they are absolutely spot on when they say bake and set because you can use it for both. This powder is wicked, guys. You should definitely try this out. I wouldn't say you can use it like for the whole of your face. I definitely wouldn't. If you are of a lighter complexion, yes, but I probably wouldn't just because it's so bright and it does have a little bit of a cast. All of these powders I'm mentioning today, there is just no flashback, which is what I like. I'm not going to sit up here and recommend flashback powders because no, I wouldn't do that to you guys. So every powder I'm mentioning today has no flashback. So the next powder I'm going to mention is the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter powder. Now this says it's actually a setting powder. I definitely agree with that. It's definitely not for baking just because it's quite a thick powder, and this is something that I would use to add coverage to my under eyes and to set, but it's very, very on the thick side. Like, it's quite a thick coverage powder. I wouldn't use this to set just because it's not bright enough. If you have a look here, it's quite a dark colored powder. I don't know if you can, yeah, it's quite a dark colored powder, so I wouldn't really use it to bake. Anything that you use to bake should be really bright, like a yellowy sort of like a white undertone, like an ashy looking whitish yellowish powder. Those type of powders I'd use to bake. So the next powder I'm going to mention is the LA Girl Pro powder. Now this powder is actually really, really good as well. It's a setting powder and it's in banana yellow. Now I I'd actually use this as both, actually, a setting powder and a baking powder. This is just so cheap and cheerful, and it's just a really nice finely milled powder. Definitely would never use this on the face because it's got a really like a light tone to it. Definitely would not use this on the face. I would say if anything was close to giving a flashback, it would be this one, but it doesn't. It just gives you a bright under eye, and I think it can actually really work. And I do use this powder a lot. It's so like, it's really flawless, and it's really like, it's just so silky kind of thing. So yeah, I do like this powder, and again, I can use this as a baking powder and a setting powder. So what I would usually do, just to give you guys a bit of a lowdown, I would usually set my under eye first with a brush with this powder, just to show you guys what I would do with this powder, right? So this is just a wedge sponge that I used earlier because I was filming. So what I would normally do is just press the sponge into the powder, and then I would use the lid just to kind of like evenly distribute the powder throughout the sponge, and then I would literally just kind of go over the areas which I want to bake, and I'll just leave it there. I won't leave it there for too long. I would kind of leave it there, then continue the rest of my makeup, then come back and then dust it away with the brush. I feel like that's the best way to bake. So I probably will do a video on that. Let me know in the comments if you want to see a video on how to bake. So the next powder I'm going to mention is the Airspun loose powder. So I have this powder in 2 different shades. I've got it in dark peach, which is this one here, and I've also got it in translucent. So I'll just show you guys. You get so much of this. Look how big this is. Like, if I just put this near my face, it's so big. Like, it's massive. It will take you forever to finish this, and it's so inexpensive. It's so reasonable. You could literally take years to finish this. But yeah, this is the color. So as you can see, it's like a peachy undertone, which is really, really good, especially if you've got darker circles under the eyes. Anything with a peach undertone is going to help conceal those areas. So this is a really nice powder. Smells amazing. It actually smells like talcum powder. At first when I bought it, I was just like, did they give me the right powder? I literally thought it was a fake powder, because I was like, what powder smells like that? But it's so nice. All my clients love it. They're like, what's that smell? I'm just like, it's me, girl. No, I'm joking. It's the powder. But yeah, it's a really nice powder. It's very, 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 very silky. It is oil controlled in like nobody's business. Like, you could actually dust this all over your face and you will be good to go. Nothing is breaking that. The only downfall I would say about this powder, you can't top it up at all. You can't top it up because it's so mattifying that you can put it on, it will look flawless. But say for example you was at a photo shoot or you wanted to retouch your makeup, and yeah, it's not gonna work because it does tend to crease. It's like it cracks eventually, just depending on the skin type as well. So be aware of that, but it's a banging powder. Like, I love this powder, it's so good. You can definitely use this. Do you know what? This actually works better as a baking powder, but I've used it for both. But I do see a difference when I've used it just as a baking powder versus using it as both a baking and a setting powder. I prefer it as a baking powder just because of, yeah, it's a little bit on the whitish, chalkyish side. So again, I prefer those sort of tones for when I am baking. So what I would usually do is use this, sorry, it's a bit messy, use the number 7 to set, or any of the setting powders to set, and then use this as a baking powder on top. Really, really good, guys. You need to check it out. Next powder I'm going to mention is the Revolution baking powder. This is actually a baking powder, guys. Now, I didn't even read this properly. When I bought it, I was just like, yeah, I've got like 3 colors, you know, 3 different shades of the same thing. But yeah, this is actually a baking powder. Definitely I would use this just as a baking powder. This can crease quite a lot. That's another reason why, guys, you have to be careful of and know what you're using for what things, for what steps, because sometimes you can put a, for example, that is a good point. How could I forget that? So guys, what it is, when you're putting a baking powder, when you're using a baking powder to set, or say for example you're using a baking powder before you've set the under eye, you can get crazy amounts of creasing. Just write that down because it's so important. Don't bake before you've set the under eye. That is like the $1 million like rule. Do not bake before using a setting powder. Now, I don't know how other makeup artists work, but this is how I work and this is how it works for me. Definitely have to set the powder first, because you know what? I used to hate this powder. I used to think this is the most crappiest powder I've ever come across. Like, how could it crease? Like, it creases like crazy, but the reason being is because I wasn't setting the powder before baking. So yeah, just make that a rule of thumb, guys. Set the powder before you bake. Now, this works amazingly as a baking powder. Wouldn't use it as a setting powder because it does crease when you've just used it as a setting powder and then you try to bake on top. Crazy, mad amount of creasing. So just, yeah, baking powder only for that. Definitely would not use this anywhere on my face at all because it really is very, very brightening. The next powder I'm going to mention is the Sasha Buttercup Setting Powder. Now, yeah, I probably would use this as a setting powder and not a baking powder, just because the coverage is quite strong. It's a very yellow powder. I think this does come in a light buttercup as well, but it's really, really yellow. So I would just use the tiniest amount of this. The thing with this is, I feel like it works better when I've got a tan, because I feel like the darker you are, the nicer this looks. I do plan on getting the light buttercup and I feel like that's going to change my life, but this one is quite on the yellow side for me. It's a really great powder and the coverage is really good, but I wouldn't use it as a baking powder at all. Maybe the lighter one I could try, but because I like my baking powders to be really fine in consistency, because imagine you've just set your under eye, then you're going to go and put another thick powder on. That's just way too much. Like, so yeah, I would just literally use this as a setting powder, and I would use it on skin tones that are my complexion and deeper. The last powder I'm going to mention is the Ben Nye setting powder. Sorry, translucent powder. Now, they say translucent. This is far from translucent, guys. This has a lot of pigment to it. It's a little bit similar to the Sacha Buttercup, but this is even more pigmented. But this is beautiful if you are a deep, dark skin tone. Amazing, like really, really nice. I wouldn't use this on myself, but I wanted to show you guys anyway because this is something I would use on my clients. It's definitely flawless, 100%. I would never use this to bake though because it's just not bright enough. It's a little bit, yeah, I wouldn't use it to bake. Too much pigment for that anyway. I wouldn't really use this all over the face because, like I said, too much pigment. I wouldn't want to give the skin like a yellow glow to it, which is not very nice. I would literally just use this to set the under eye, and if I wanted to carve out, you know, the cheeks and whatnot, and then I would go in with another powder to bake on top of that. But this for baking, I find it a little bit too dull and too dark. It's not brightening enough for me. So yeah, there is another one that I have, which is the banana powder. That's really good, but I would just use that to bake because setting, I don't really get on with it when I'm setting I wouldn't use it to set really. So yes, that is it for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you found it informative. I've been itching to do a setting powder video for the longest, but I just wanted to get together all my products and make sure I'm giving you guys A1 info. I wanted to give you powders that I love, not just ones that I have, you know. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought of this video in the comment section down below, or if you guys have any suggestions of which videos you want me to post or film next, let me know. It's always good to hear from you guys, so let me know. Obviously, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, guys, and if you are not subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Go ahead and click that subscribe button and also the notification bell so that you can be notified on my next upload. So until then, guys, make sure you guys take care of yourselves and I will see you again in my next video. Bye.